noise. For some reason, OBS just really likes being the most quiet thing on my computer, which is really annoying. It basically means that if I want to be able to hear anything in OBS, I have to have my sounds turned right up, and then if anything outside of OBS plays, then I get my ears blown out, which is always fun. And had a revolver that they weren't proficient in. That sounds super fun. We just recently fought a big boss in our Wild Beyond the Witchlight campaign, which was a lot of fun as well. And the party really did a fantastic job of divide and conquer, where my player spent the entire time destroying the equipment that was making them powerful. Carrot's character got in melee and just tied them up, and they kept summoning minions, and everybody else was like, no, I don't think you're allowed to have minions. And the DM after the fact is like, little win today, which was we're getting ready to ship a new product that I did the firmware and versions 2, 3, and 4 of the electronics. The very, very first iteration was done by somebody. It is a fairly big balance change because fire is resisted by the most creatures in the game, right? As a result of that, that means that, on average, they will do more damage to any given random monster in the game, which seems like a potentially big deal. However, I don't know about your games. I'm not pulling random monsters from the from the monster manual. I'm not grabbing random monsters. I'm creating my encounters. So it doesn't matter what random monsters or any aggregation of monsters is resistant to. And also, I make the rules. Guess what? That ancient dragon, yeah, they were bullied. had the dragon take off, and Goblin Paladin who wore like ratted out vestments over some really shiny plate armor he had stolen off a corpse. And it was a very fun character to play. Because one of my big things I always maintain is if you're running a new game, running a game for new players, you never want your players to feel like they can't be ridiculous. As a result, you want somebody who's going to be the most ridiculous person at the table. And it gives everybody else the permission to be silly. So, as a result, you had Chonk, who spoke with a really, really squeaky voice, explode midair, and the two pieces came down, the front half and the back half. And basically, like, the front half was the head that couldn't move around, but had, the beam attack and the aura and that kind of stuff. And then the body didn't have the beam, didn't have the aura, but it had a lot of hit points. Finish off this monster. Describe it for me. Whatever. Carolyn actually has a TPK to her name. I don't. To be fair, Carolyn's TPK is a danger room simulation of basically a friend came to Carolyn and went, hey, I know you want to run more combats. We need to learn how to play together as a team. We'd love if you could run a combat for us. And Carrot set up a fairly a difficult but manageable combat as long as they were playing well. But they kept the creature in question. I believe it was the Shardland Dragon that Carolyn enjoyed fighting so much. Although, you know, Fola DeFranco. One of the big annoying things we have to deal with, and why we wet sand rather than dry sand, is all of the resin powder that gets picked up by the sanding. More damage against the monsters guy. Thanks, Ariel. Welcome in. Lovely to see you. We're sanding dice today because we've got an in-person sale on the weekend. And we're trying to get some stuff ready. Currently, we're talking about Killjoy DMs and novelty dice. But yeah, like, so the thing is like, my player asked me if they could reskin Fireball to be psychic damage. And if you look, you know, from a sheer statistics standpoint, the problem is they can oftentimes feel a little lackluster, especially in low levels. And given that this is a fairly low level campaign, we're like 2 years into it and we just hit level 7. You can't have a class that feels terrible at low levels if you're going to be spending the entire campaign at low levels. So we changed it, and it basically is like a wild magic monk that is built around the idea of protecting their friends. And it is fantastic. And it has been a lot of fun to revisit and go after. Yeah, I need to... Like, I think right now it's like 2 millimeters deep, and I need it to be like a 1/4 millimeter deep. Oh, I know why that's so quiet. No. Weird. Well, I guess that means that you MK for 5 minutes and missed a bonk. Follow the Franco. Welcome in, Franco. Good to see you. But basically, they were talking about how, you know, they homebrewed the shit out of this game, and we laughed at the fact that no, you haven't. You haven't changed anything. And it became one of those things that was a bit of a meme, right? Is, you know, you got homebrew, and then that ended up turning in. Wondering if that was the breaker popping. Sounded like a breaker popping. Ah, let me fix that. I'll be right back. I want to work with my players so that they have the most fun possible. And there's not even really tournaments in D&D. Like there's Adventurers League play, but that's not even really tournament. That's just that's just group play that's been organized by modules organized by Wizards of the Coast. And those modules suck, I would like to say. They're terrible, and I never want to run one or play in one. But like, there isn't really Explain Ombrou. In how much detail, Carrot? I mean, realistically, it's not like the parties involved are watching this stream, so I could probably actually be a little bit more specific. So, basically, a friend of ours was in a D&D campaign that was being streamed. Two of our friends, actually. One of them ended up dropping out of the campaign for very good reasons. But the other hung around, and it was a painfully bad campaign. They were like, yeah, pretty much all of their powers required minions, hirelings, whatever. All of their stuff was like stage directions, directing other people to do stuff. But none of them actually lived long enough to do anything because they had to rush up the stairs to get into the room. At which point, that was going to be the end of their turn. And then we started pulling some really crazy stuff to be like, okay, so some AoE stuff? AoE? Yeah, great, awesome, lovely. And just absolutely destroyed them. So the DM had a rough time that one, but that was fun for us. creates a really gross paste. Thank you, Carrot. At a lovely... Whoa. Songs of the Spellbound Sea. Yeah, I backed a module called Songs of the Spellbound Sea, which is super interesting, and is largely, go figure, based around piracy and pirates, and pirate crews and the like. What's my favorite piece of homebrew to date? Great question. Those are a little lifted. I did not push that lid down hard enough. That one's better. Favorite piece of homebrew to date? It's Cole. We do all sorts of random stuff here. We do 3D printing, we do dice making, we do electronics and engineering. We're currently partway through a... that is a chonk dice. A very pretty one at that. Yeah, it's this very pearly, teal, pinky situation. Very, very pretty. So outside of this, our currying is not always the easy part to balance for. Like, for instance, one of my players, they have a character who's a sorcerer, which basically means to be viable, they largely should probably have Fireball, right? They're a forest fae. They're a fairy. Fireball's a little bit horrific in their view, but they're all about manipulation and illusion and stuff like that. So they asked me if we could reskin Fireball to be psychic instead. And there was, so there was the question of like, can we make it a different damage type? Because doing fire damage isn't really what my character would do. I'm Mothman, otherwise known as Brew, then what we do is Ombrew, because it's very clearly different. And, yeah, so we ended up, like, one of my favorite pieces of homebrew is probably the Way of the Bob Monk, which was a lot of fun. Carrot is playing a Furbolg Monk in the Witchlight campaign. And, yeah, Ombrew is the joy of making things ridiculous, right? What does Ombrew mean to you? It's the feeling in your heart. But yeah, like for instance, Carrot's monk subclass that we created for them is Carrot wanted to play monk because monks are in theory really cool. Absolutely. Head off, take a nap. No worries at all. I don't know what that noise was. Looking at it, switching from fire damage over to psychic is actually a fairly substantial balance shift within a certain aspect. Now, the reason I say it's a balance shift is specifically uh, because fire is one of the most. Sorry, it is the most elemental, most resisted elemental damage in the game. Once you discount, like piercing, bludgeoning, slashing from non-magical types, fire is resisted by the most creatures. Okay, so switching from fire over to psychic, those people are now rolling. Oh, thanks, Nightbot. Really appreciate that. Good job. Just check the, just check the users list, and I see you. I see you there. You are perceived. No, not Franco. The Yeah, it's a little goblin paladin that was designed for keeping the party alive for some first-time players, and um, Twilight clerics are particularly good at that. They are very, very, very strong at. They have some auras that allow people to max out healing, and they have an aura that maxes healing and also gives 10 hit points every round, and that's a passive thing that doesn't need to be re-upped or anything. So it's a pretty strong piece overall. Yeah, and then Carrot kept running away, which is fine, whatever. But yeah, they were a